Hello and welcome to another session of Dirt, and today our learning objective is how can I cross-reference sources? Cross-referencing is comparing sources to see how much they agree. So what we're going to do today is compare source D and source C to see how much they agree with each other. So we're going to cross-reference them, compare them. So let's start by having a look at source D. Okay, well, source D says that Harold fell down and his brain was pierced with an arrow through the eye. And one of the soldiers with a sword cut his leg and there he lay dying. So it tells us two things. Firstly, that Harold had an arrow through his eye, and secondly, that another soldier cut off his leg and he lay there dying. So both an arrow and a sword have been mentioned in the source. Now let's have a look at source C and see how much it agrees. So this is source C. Women who lived in Bayeux, which is the Normandy of France, stitching together a long piece of cloth telling the story of the Battle of Hastings. It was called the Bayeux Tapestry. It was finished in 1077, but is a primary source because it was started in 1066. The women were never at the battle, but were stories told from people who were. Harold Rex Interfectus Est, which you can see here in the tapestry, means here Harold dies, and it shows Harold dying from an arrow in his eye. There he is. You can just see the arrow. So this source is mainly suggesting that Harold died from an arrow in his eye and not from other injuries. So we've looked at both sources. Now we need to consider how much they agree. We're going to cross-reference them. So you can start by saying what one source shows you. So for example, source C suggests that Harold was killed with an arrow in the eye. It shows King Harold on a horse pulling the arrow out of his eye. So we've explained what source C shows us. But now we need to compare the source to see how much it agrees with other sources. So another source that agrees is source D. I'm going to see how it agrees. So it says that Harold fell down and his brain was pierced with an arrow through the eye, which shows that both source C, which says that he was killed with an arrow in the eye, and source D agree that he was killed with an arrow through the eye. But they completely agree, because we've got to see how much they agree. So we can add, however, the two sources do not completely agree. And we explain why. As source D also mentions that he may have died from extra injuries when soldiers with a sword cut his leg. So we've now cross-referenced. Remember, cross-referencing is comparing sources to see how much they agree. So we said what one source showed us, so source C showed us that Harold was killed with an arrow in the eye. We said another source, source D, also agreed that he may have been killed through an arrow through his eye. But then we also pointed out in what ways the sources didn't agree with each other. So source D also mentioned he may have died from extra injuries when soldiers with a sword cut his leg. So these sources only partly agree on the way that Harold was killed. Have a go at cross-referencing two sources in your answer, in green pen in your book.